What's going on, guys? Welcome to Modified Garage, and today we're going to be doing an upgrade big brake kit on my Civic Si 2018. There's a couple companies out there that already make big brake kits, but since we're not going to go ahead and drop $2,000 on a big brake kit, we're going to source out some Brembos from a different vehicle, some rotors from a different vehicle, and all the other steps that come along with building a big brake kit for any vehicle, really. So let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, so unfortunately I'm missing some of the content that I had. I don't know what happened to it, but I got to give you the breakdown of basically what you're going to end up needing as far as the whole kit. Unfortunately, you're going to have to see kind of like a break to the past of what I did to get these powder coated. I went through some serious issues trying to get it stripped with some heavy duty stripper, or allegedly heavy duty stripper, and it gave me really bad results. I'm going to go ahead and kind of fast forward to some of the problems that I had with the stripper. So I started out using aircraft remover, and although it does work, it takes so much time that to the point where it wasn't really worth waiting. I left it on there for probably something like an hour or 2 hours, and I barely got any penetration through like the heavier blocks of the powder. So we got to strip these obviously in order for me to powder coat them the next color, but it just wasn't working out. So I just decided to take like a wire wheel to it, and gave me a little bit of imperfections in some parts, but I think what I'm going to end up doing instead on this one is send it to get sandblasted. So we're going to go ahead and take that over there to get this one sandblasted. I need to remove the pistons, and we'll go ahead and take care of both of them at the same time. So let's go ahead and do that. So what you're seeing me do right here is force about 15 psi of air into the caliper with a wood piece right there to stop the pistons from completely shooting out like that one did right there. So number 4 just kind of popped out. Then afterwards you're going to remove the boots, the dust seals, and I just kind of pulled them out and ripped them off because I knew I was going to get new ones. I took a flathead right here and just started prying on the side of the piston where it's connecting to the boot, and just basically pry each and every one of them out. So you see me rip another boot there, pry it a little bit, struggle. The other alternative to doing this is basically trying to force air in with a block that's pretty much perfect to the dimensions of the brake pads, and try to force all the air out of all the pistons at the same time. But I just decided just to pry them out, and they come out pretty easily. Inside of the piston walls are a small little seal, and you got to pull that seal out, and that's what prevents the brake fluid from coming out. And all this stuff has to come out in order for the caliper to get powder coated, otherwise it'll combust with the brake fluid inside the oven, and that's why we need to do all this process. I think that's my neighbor at the GTR. Let's see, get him. That thing's pretty sick. So now we have those taken out. Try to make sure to get all the brake fluid we possibly can out of it, and then we'll have to bleed it. We'll have to end up shoving some brake cleaner in there to get the rest of the stuff out, and go from there. But let's take out these bleeder screws. These bleeder screws are a 11. They're 10 or 11. I believe they're 11. Let's see. Yep, 11, as I figured. Go ahead and take these off real quick. Gotta be careful with them if you impact them like I'm doing. Just try not to go ham on them. If they get stuck, back off and just try to do it by hand. But these things typically come out pretty easy. So Greg is the owner of Wake and Bake Powder Coating, and he also does sandblasting. So he's kind of inspecting the caliper right now to see what parts he needs to sandblast. And at some point, we ended up just doing it on a different day to get everything stripped. So he ended up blasting it on a different day. So we're gonna go ahead and fast forward past this. So we're back here at Greg's house, trying to get the calipers set up here. He already has them baked, and he cleaned them out with mineral spirits, so that way we can get all the brake grease out, because you don't want to be putting these in the oven with brake fluid in it, otherwise they'll just light on fire. So he has a cool oven right here. You can already feel the temperature like way from like 5-10 feet away already. It's super hot. The thing is awesome. You could basically fit like a full frame in here, which is so cool. Quite a bit of equipment to get this done. So we have the powder right here. This is a sherbet color is what they call it. So right here's the Prismatic. As I was saying before, they do Cerakote as well. So later on we could probably even do some gun parts, which I don't know. I've never actually seen a green gun actually. Green gun, yeah. I might have to look into that. Maybe one of my slides for the LC380. That would be freaking amazing, dude. I think most of them kind of stay like a darker color or whatnot that I've seen. I've never really seen any bright color guns, but I think that's probably for a reason. People don't want to think like, oh,
they don't want that bright color.
No, not necessarily that. They don't want to think it's like a toy.
Correct.
So that's why I try to stay away from those bright colors. So we're gonna go ahead and take the powder coat and get started with the process. He's gonna plug all the holes, so the area where the bleeder goes. And I think you're going to end up putting tape over the insides, right? Or how are you going to do that?
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and mask this off with a high temp tape.
Okay.
So it's going to look like this. So run a high temp tape, and we're going to go ahead and mask these off, take an X-Acto knife, and go ahead and clean those up.
Sweet.
Make sure no powder gets in there. Makes it really nice for the install.
What else goes on after this? After we end up taping it up and prep everything, what else is the next stage after this?
So I've already outgassed these, so it's going to go ahead and burn off any of the impurities, any of the oils that your calipers are going to have. After I tape it, then it's pretty much ready to go. So we're just going to hang it up, hook up the charge to it, and then from there we're just going to go ahead and powder coat it.
Okay, so tell me what was the difference between this gun and the gun that I was going to be using before. Because I ended up getting a buddy's powder coating gun, and it's an Eastwood. And that's what you started off with, right?
Yeah. So I can actually show you that.
Cool.
This system right here, is going to be your Eastwood system. It works great for your standard home set, but what you run out of is your KV settings. So your KV settings are going to be your kilovolts. So you got 15 kVs, and you also got 25 kVs. So typically your powders are going to run anywhere between around minimum 45 kVs, at least that's what the product guide says on Prismatic powders.
Right.
So this gun here, it's not obviously your highest end gun, but it is going to do the job. It's got an adjustment on the back for your KV, and it goes all the way up to 55 kV. So it does give you that control, and it's also going to allow you to shoot those double colors that require 2 and 3 coats of powder coat on top of it.
Right. So the basic settings for Prismatic is usually between 25 and 40, or what's?
From what I've seen, the lowest is 45 kilovolts, all the way up to you can go all the way up to 110.
Gotcha. Cool. So I'm excited to see these. We still have to do the back ones, but we're going to do those a different day. For time being, we want to get these taken care of. I still need to get the rotors sized out and dimension. I do have the brakes, so we can go ahead and kind of size those out and measure the thickness that we're going to be using as far as the rotors. And we'll take care of the front first, and then once we're ready with all this set up and installed into the vehicle, I'll remove those, and then we'll go ahead and powder coat the backs, come back to Greg and get the back ones taken care of. Then after this, we have intercooler piping, which I'm really looking forward to too, because I really hate the factory intercooler that we have on there right now. And I also want to end up putting an aftermarket blow off valve, which we'll get back to that later.
go knock them, you know, have anything come on.
So we have this temperature gauge right here that'll actually tell us on the part. So he just got done putting it in right now. As soon as it ends up getting to the point where it coats the entire part and then looks super glossy, then we'll go ahead and take temperature readings of the part itself. And then once the part reaches, how many degrees?
400.
400 degrees, we have to make sure the part hits. And then after that, there's a cool down part, or a, what do you call it as far as the process after the 400 degrees? It's a cool down process?
So then you go into your curing process. So once
Curing process, there you go.
Yeah, once you get the part up to 400, now you start your timer between 10 to 12 minutes, depending on what the product data guide says.
Yep, that's exactly
You're gonna run that for 10 to 12 minutes, and then that'll be cured, and you can go ahead and let it out, let it cool, and it's done.
And how long do you think it's gonna take to get to the 400 degrees?
Typically on a bake, I run between 30 to 45 minutes, okay. Sometimes an hour, but it works out to be about 30-45 minutes.
Okay, cool. So we'll go ahead and wait that out and check out what the color looks like.
And I won't start that timer until my oven gets back up to 400.
Sweet. All right, it's that time. Let's see how it came out.
Watch out, a lot of gas coming out.
In camera, it actually looks better. Right now, it looks like a super yellow, but then it's gonna change actually once it ends up cooling down anyways. We're at 300 degrees in the part. So we still got a little bit more. All right, so we've already waited the entire curing process of 12 minutes, and they look really different in the oven, but once we end up pulling them out, hopefully they're completely different color. So they're super hot. I can feel it right here.
It's a little more yellow than we.
A lot more yellow than I thought. Look how much of a difference it is before when it comes out of the oven versus what it actually is. And I was talking to Greg, I'm like, dude, this color is ugly. Like, this is not what I wanted. This is actually like it's like a mustard. It's hard to see in camera, but it's like a mustard in real life. And I hated it. As it ended up cooling down, the process ends up making the color shift change so much that it came out the color that I wanted. So bitchin' now. Amazing how that works. So it's just getting better as it dries. It's awesome. Love it. Love the color now. So I had a few imperfections when I was pulling out the pistons. On one of them I tried a technique by using some vice grips, and you can see there's some nicks right there. So don't use vice grips. That's the name of this mistake. And that's me comparing the two between a polished and non-polished piston. So I decided to go ahead and take off the imperfections and sand it and polish it, and basically this is the time lapse of me doing so. So you'll see some 220 grit right there, and then 60 grit, and then to the bottom left you see some fine 1000 grit. I think I also used 800, but just like any paint job or anything like that, that's pretty much simple to do. So I sped this up 8 times video speed so we could kind of get through this without being so gruesome. But right there you're seeing me hit it with 80 grit, and this is basically to take down the high spots of the nicks that I made, and you'll be seeing me pick up the 400 grit after that. It's basically like a wet sandpaper, but I hit it with no water at all, just dry, and it'll take down a lot of the imperfections of the heavier scratches from the 80 grit, and then go straight down to a very mild 1000 grit, which will bring out the polish, and then bust out the polish cream here, put a little bit on, and just go to town on basically polishing it, all the imperfections of the scratches, so that it comes out nice and shiny and super wet, and helps out with the lubrication quite a bit. So here I am buffing the hell out of it. Ended up changing the battery, it died. The buffing wheel just snaps right onto the drill, and the drill just needs to be a nice high-speed drill in order for it to buff nicely. The compound does the rest of the job once you end up going to town with some nice sandpaper. So just clean it up with a nice rag and you get really shiny results like this. Overall, it looks really good. I ended up taking my OCD to another level and polishing the pins that hold the brackets and brake pads, so you can see those are shiny as well. But that pretty much wraps up this part of the video. I'm going to go ahead and install the pistons, and after that I'll go over all the other gear that I ended up buying to get this entire brake job complete.